Hi everyone, this is Christian from ClicData, and welcome back to a new episode of our ClicData Pro Workshop series where we'll walk you through common use cases and show you how to solve them using the ClicData platform. Today's episode is about data exploration with Drilldown Interactions, in which we'll show neat, unconventional ways to interact with your data on your dashboards. While we have conventional ways to interact with your data, such as using filter panels or list widgets, hopefully some of the solutions we have for you today can improve the experience for your end user. We'll be using eCommerce data because it contains many categorical and metric columns appropriate for what we're trying to demonstrate today. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So for our first use case, we'll be exploring how to use the selected category on your widgets as a filter. So on my dashboard, I have 4 widgets, and on here I have on-click functionality where I can select in this case, a pie chart. I can select the category on a pie chart and it will filter the line chart and the table below. In extension of that, I can also click a data point on my line chart to filter the transactions table to that specific date. To set this up, you'll need to implement a filter on your receiving widget. So for this example, it is the line chart. Here I have the category, which is the column used to create the pie chart. In here, I am using the selected category parameter for the widget function. If I evaluate this, you'll see sports because that's the category I have selected on my pie chart. On top of that, I also have a conditional toggle. So when it is orange, that means it's conditional, meaning if this formula result is null, we will ignore the filter as opposed to filtering by null, which would yield a blank chart when the dashboard loads because there is no category that is selected when a dashboard loads, which is our default behavior. For the transactions table, it's a very similar process. We do have the same category filter that we implemented on the line chart. But over here, we also have something filtering for the order date. And in here, we are getting the selected category from the line chart instead of the pie chart. When I evaluate this, we'll see July 13th, which is the data point I have selected. And from this result alone, it seems like there are 3 sport-related transactions that occurred on July 13th. So it's a really cool way to drill down on your data. As you can see, I'm just hitting different categories and different data points on my line chart. To improve the user experience, something we've done is create a scorecard widget. And here we can just return the selected category from the pie chart. The icon value actually doesn't matter here, so this could just be 1 and it'll be the same thing. So put anything you want here. But for the pie chart selected category, you want to return the label itself so that it just shows when I have a category selected. Something else we're doing here is we're including conditional visibility. More on this in a future video, but to glance over what we're doing here is we're checking if the selected category of the pie chart is empty. Currently, it's not, so it's returning false. And that's where we use the not function, which inverses this output. So if I evaluate this, we get true. And so in such cases, when there is a category selected in the pie chart, this widget will show. And it is a good user experience because it tells end users what they have selected so they don't lose track. And so you can see that dynamically changing according to my selection. Same thing for the line chart. We have exact same process, but instead we're just referencing the selected category of the line chart. And of course, we are constructing our conditional visibility formula based on the line chart as well. So for our second use case, we'll be exploring ClicData's chart drill down feature. And so on my dashboard, I have a stacked column chart showing total revenue broken down by product category, as well as platform as the series to sort of showcase what platform the transaction was performed on. When I click on specific data points on this chart, you'll see that I can drill down on other columns in my data. And so to set this up, it's quite straightforward. All you really need to do is just insert your columns in the exact drill down order that you need. And when you do this, you'll see that we're getting every distinct combination from across your three categories, just plotted on the x-axis. So to enable the chart drill down feature, you just need to click this circle icon here. And the way you know it's enabled is when you see this cursor icon pointing to the center of the circle. And right off the bat, that should give you a really cool way to interact with your data. Now, to pass this to subsequent widgets, so in my case, this transactions table down below, it's slightly different from the previous use case because we are calling the selected categories of the column chart as opposed to the selected category. So hence the plural. Why this matters is because when calling these selected categories, we get an array of values as opposed to a single string. So when working with arrays to extract the corresponding element, we need to use array index to go to the array and get our index accordingly. So in my case, 0, which is the first element in my array, this will extract sports. Now, we are using if error here because when you're using the array index function and there's no category or categories selected, this will return an error. So to sort of escape that, we use if error to return nothing instead. And so this will sort of mimic the previous behavior where if nothing is selected, that means it's null. And because we are using the orange toggle here, that means that the filter is ignored when nothing is selected. And so for subcategory and brand, we just get the corresponding index from the array. So outdoor is our second value, brand being our third. For device, we just get the selected series. This one is more straightforward because this one's a separate breakdown. So it's not related to the chart drill down feature that we're sort of showcasing for this example. So the last thing that we can do to improve this user experience is by using the scorecards again. But one thing I did different from the previous example was color code the device selections to match the color of its bar. So for example, with mobile, it has a dark blue. So I will color code this scorecard to dark blue, as well as show a mobile icon that we have in our icon library. On the other hand, let's go to desktop. Let me hit desktop and you'll see I have the desktop icon instead, along with the turquoise color assigned to the desktop platform. So to achieve this, we use the selected series as both the icon value and the value itself. Now, in style and format and conditional style, here we set up our conditions to adjust the color depending on whether it's mobile or desktop. So you can see here, this is the conditional format settings for mobile where I have its color assigned and the mobile icon. And then same here for desktop where we have that turquoise and we have the desktop icon. For the rest of the selections, it's the same thing where we use the exact same formulas in the filters for the table, but we just showcase that in the cell itself. So we are using a formula here to say, yeah, get the first index from the selected categories, in the case for my product categories, and so on and so forth. So for our third and final use case, we'll be exploring dynamic metrics and dimensions. So on my dashboard, I have a button group here, and this button group controls which metric is loaded on both my column chart and my line chart down below. The dimensions, I have a drop-down list. And so this controls the x-axis of my column chart, and as well as fuels the list widget down below that adjusts the line chart. To walk you through how this is set up, I have my button group here, and the labels can be anything you'd like, but the more important part is the values for the button group. Here I have column names, and these are wrapped in square brackets. So this will sort of tell the visual widgets which column to sort of aggregate in this case. For the dimensions, similar process, have some front end values. But because the drop-down list does not use the formula editor, we don't need to use the single quotes here. Instead, we can just sort of pass the column name in square brackets as is. And then for our values in the list widget, we are calling the selected value from the drop-down list. So this is region. So this is my column name, and this will load its distinct values on the list widget. So for my column chart, I have two calculated columns. So one for the metric and another for the dimensions. For the metric, we're calling the selected value from the button group. And so the beauty of doing it this way is because you have one chart that's responsive to the metric that you have selected. Instead of doing things more traditionally where you say have three different charts for three different metrics and then overlaying them and controlling the visibility of them through a formula, this is a lot more elegant and easier to manage down the line. For the dimensions, we're just calling the selected value from the drop-down list, and that will just sort of load my dimension values across the x-axis. Now, something I'm doing a little bit different here is I'm using that same calculated column for the series. And all this does is it just adds a different color for each category. If you prefer something more uniform like this, it's completely up to you. So this is an optional step. One last thing that I'm doing is creating a widget filter so that this is for the dimensions, and I'm making it equal to the values in the list widget. So when I go back here and I select different regions, of course, I'm only seeing the ones that are selected. And this is important because this will keeps things consistent with the line chart below. So for the line chart, we're actually doing something a little bit more different. So instead of grabbing the selected value from one of our input widgets, here we're constructing a very dynamic case statement. So when I evaluate this, you'll see that we do get a syntactically valid case statement, but every component is adjustable according to our widget selections. So here, our column, this is our dimension in this case, region, and we have our dimension values here, and as well as our metric that's being aggregated. So we will provide this formula in the description, but if you have any questions about this, feel free to drop a comment or submit a support ticket and we'll assist you there. But having it this way allows me to control different dimensions and its corresponding values for the line chart while having a different column for my x-axis. And so that was the significance of using the case statement there. And one final thing that we can do to sort of improve this user experience is dynamic labels. So similar to the scorecard, but instead we're just using formula-based labels here. We can see that I'm just performing a concatenation and just grabbing the selected label. In this case, it's our metric, so we're grabbing the selected label from our button group. And for the sort of subtitle, we are grabbing the selected label from our drop-down list. And so I've opted to use labels instead. Instead of using the native title and subtitle, of the chart itself because it allows me to use a formula in this case, so it can be dynamic. And with that concludes today's workshop. So we strongly hope that some of the use cases discussed in this video make your data exploration journeys a lot more engaging and enjoyable for your end users. If you like what you're seeing or have suggestions for future topics, give us a like and a comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.